Hi there, just read this disclaimer please.
And hello there. So, welcome to my new computer. It looks the same as my old one, doesn't it? That's because Windows 11 has the most annoying, what's this called? Taskbar. Has the most annoying taskbar ever, where everything here, even when it's being used, is tiny. So you have to be really accurate to flick between them. But so you've got a good margin of error with this one. So I had to get some dodgy software to replicate Windows 10's taskbar. So that's why it looks the same. Anyway, that's a load of information you didn't need. I've just been thinking about state pensions, as the name of the video suggests. I've been doing something, and I've got my my latest information. As you can see, I've had 17 years fully contributed, 15 more to get the maximum amount, which is less than the 35 in total. But I think I think it's a very complicated system. So some people you need 35, others, like me, obviously, is slightly different. It seems like I need 32 in total. I've looked at this in the past, and more than anything, just based on my emotions, I decided I wasn't going to do any of the top-ups. Just because, I don't know, it's just so unpredictable what could happen to the state pension. And I always felt, also, if you look at, you'd be very, very familiar with this spreadsheet for me by now. But my plan is to get myself in a better and better financial situation as each year goes by. I'm aiming high. So after 14 years, the income from the dividend portfolio covers my spending. And so to me, it feels to me like getting through the first 14 years is more important than being even wealthier in year. The pension forecaster said it's 48 when I would get the state pension. That's another thing. That year's going to go later and later. I know it is. I think it will be at least 2050 before I start receiving the state pension. So it's just getting later, and it's getting later. You never know what's going to happen with it. So that's why, purely based on principle, not principle. It's not like I'm mad at anything. I'm just thinking to myself what I'd prefer. I wouldn't probably top it up anyway. But I thought I'd look at the numbers as well. Just to see what the rational numeric decision should be, even if I wasn't going to make the rational decision. Because obviously, as you can see here, by 2048, I should have put actual years here, shouldn't I? What's 48 minus 23? 10, 20, it's about 25 years, isn't it, roughly? So this is my projection for my finances in 25 years' time. I'm already spending 15 grand less than I am earning in dividends. So this is this could well be very optimistic, but hey, I'm aiming high. So to me, having those few hundred quid each, all those hundreds of quid that I could spend on topping up my national insurance record, it's better to have the money now. But anyway, regardless of that, I thought I'd look at the numbers, because quite often you'd hear people analyse this in a very basic way. They'd say, well, like Martin Lewis, I think I've heard him say this. You spend, these are my years that I can contribute. As you can see, there's a couple here where I've had partial national insurance records. So obviously they're a lot cheaper to buy. And what's prompted this video and me thinking about this is that soon you're only going to be able to purchase up to 6 years. So these two here that are bargains compared to the others, they're going to disappear soon, like literally in I think about a month or two. So I'll lose this opportunity to buy these two at the lower prices. What was I saying? So yeah, I could have always bought, but yeah, so the basic way, for instance, Martin Lewis describes it is, he says, you can spend 824 quid and it buys you, well, I've done my exact calculation here because I've got 15 years left to contribute. Currently it's 185 max and I'm getting 110. So I've subtracted 110 from 185, divided by the 15 years and then multiplied it by the number of weeks in a year to get the yearly income. And that number there will adjust up for inflation. So what he does is he says, right, 824 divided by 260, you only have to survive 3.17 years after the state pension's being paid for you to benefit from buying this. Now I have an issue with that. To me, I'm not saying that this makes a massive difference. It's not the worst conclusion ever, but to me that is assuming that instead of paying the £824, you have just left the £824 in your bank earning interest that might match inflation. That's the assumption made there to make that number make sense. Whereas to me, the choice is spend it on the national insurance record or invest it. They're my two choices, because this is an investment. If you bought your national insurance record here, that's an investment. To be honest, I think partially it's because when he's talking about this normally, these are people who might be maybe 1 or 2 years away from retirement. So the effect of investing for 1 or 2 years is not big. So I suppose it's understandable in a way. He's tailoring his advice to people who are really close to retirement, and in which case it doesn't make much difference at all. I'm in a different scenario completely, aren't I? Well, according to this estimate, so I've got 25 years of investing this money. So what I've done is I've done some comparisons which to me make more sense. Voluntary versus investing. So what I've done here is I've assumed 25 years. This is buying it today, which I would never do. Well, I don't know. I'm thinking about doing it for these two, but I'd never do it for these because these are all a full price. There's no point in doing them today when I could invest for 25 years. These can wait until closer to the time. But the reason let me get rid of that one. So what I've done is I've done like an estimate of returns above inflation with the alternative of investing it. So I've just put in the years there, number 25 years. I've put in an estimate of 5%. So that say if inflation averaged at 3%, that would be total returns of 8% a year. Which obviously at the moment 3% is much lower, but you know, over a 25-year period you can have high points like now and low points like a few years ago, and hopefully it'll average out to 3% over the 25 years. And then just done this formula here. You know, it's just adding the return on. So this is the value this is my estimated value of these amounts of money in 2048. But obviously this is in today's money. So in reality these numbers will be a lot higher, but obviously prices of goods and services will be a lot higher as well. So that gets those values. So we're already in a much different situation, aren't we? To do it their simple way, he would say, right, well, you've got this much money in the alternative, so how many years do you have to survive before it's worthwhile buying? And you do this sum. And it becomes 10.72 instead of 3 years. But I mean, even that isn't quite perfect, because the reality is I wouldn't be spending this money anyway. This is marginal money, as I showed over here. My plan would be not to be spending anywhere near as much as I get in dividends. So the alternative is to just keep it invested after that period. I mean, I've kind of done it in two different ways here. I initially started doing it by like just keeping it invested and selling 216 today's money out of the portfolio. So that's what I've done here. So as you can see from the formula here, it's just taking the value into 2048, whenever that, or you know, it could be later. It's taking that value. It's adding on the inflation adjusted return of 5%, or before and after inflation. I don't know how to word it. It's before inflation, isn't it? Because the total return will be 5% plus inflation, making it 8 estimated. So this is the before inflation amount returned. So it adds that to it, and then it subtracts the 260. And as you can see, for these like full price years, if you like, 824 quid, it takes about, according to this way of doing it, it takes about 15 to 16 years before you're better off doing it the national insurance purchase way. But then obviously for these 2 years that are a lot less money, it becomes it becomes quite questionable whether I'm making the right decision really based on the numbers. I mean, the other thing that makes this whole thing kind of illogical is that the pension isn't, at the moment, the pension isn't just rising by inflation, is it? It's got the triple lock. I mean, so obviously, that's another reason why what I'm doing here doesn't really make complete sense. But I mean, that to me is just another thing. It's another layer of uncertainty. I think I'd rather take the uncertainty of the stock market and the growth in earnings of the companies and the dividends that get paid. I think I'd rather take that uncertainty than take the political uncertainty of things being played around with on the state pension. And because the triple lock, by definition, the triple lock cannot last forever. Every single year, well, not every single year where inflation is lower than wage inflation, or 2.5%, the pensioner's wage would go up by more than that, and that would compound over years and years and years, and eventually it would be unsustainable. So it can't last forever. They've already broken the rule temporarily one year, although to me it was technically breaking the rule, but to me it wasn't breaking the spirit of the rule, I don't think. So I wasn't, doesn't bother me. So as you can see, it's a no-brainer to not do it this year for any of these full price ones, obviously, because obviously the closer you get to your retirement date, the better deal this is, because the alternative, the number of years you have the money invested goes lower and lower. So as you can see, by going down to 10 years of investment, I'm a lot closer to these cheaper years, aren't I? It's only 6 years of survival to make it worthwhile. And that's another reason I was looking into this, is because it's like, what are my choices? I can either buy these right now, or closer to the time I can spend a full amount on it. So I've put this little plan together. If this is how it continues to work at the moment, the new rules that come in, I think it's April this year, you're allowed to purchase up to 6 years previous. So if that rule was to continue, which it probably won't, who knows, there's such a long time, I would then, as things stand today, if all these rules are exactly the same later on, I would be able to purchase 6 in 2048, the year I get my state pension, and then for each of these years I would buy the corresponding year in that cell there. So in 2047 I'd buy 2041's year, because that is 6 years before. So obviously 2042 to 48 would be purchased the day I retire, or maybe a week before. I don't know how it works exactly. And then 6 years prior I'd buy, so each of these years I'd buy the 6 years before, the one that was about to expire, if you like. I'd buy it just before it expires. So that would be how it would work. So in that case, the longest that any of these years, I think that all adds up to 15 if you add it all up. 6 plus those 9 years. Yeah, 6 plus 9 is 15. So yeah, in that scenario, the longest I'd be able to invest the money in the alternative scenario would be 9 years. What I wanted to do was compare the full price one with these two bargain ones that I could get. So to do that, all I have to do is reduce the number of years to 9, and if we scroll across, we'll see when it runs out. And as you can see, it's still only 5 years worth of survival required. So to me, it doesn't make sense to even buy these bargain years here. So I don't think I'm going to buy them. But like I said before, I'd made this decision before I even looked at the numbers. It was more of an academic exercise, really, looking at these numbers. Yeah, I mean, all this blanked out stuff here is just me checking the calculations, because I got my head in a bit of a mess thinking about that calculation that was in those cells higher up. I was thinking to myself, well, if you add inflation to the payment each year, is that the same as adding inflation to the investment pot? I don't know. I got myself a bit confused, so I worked it out in 3 different ways just to kind of sense check the numbers. So all these numbers down here don't really matter, but I just thought I'd explain why that was all blacked out and why I wasn't talking through it. But yeah, obviously, so that's the worst. That's the worst case scenario. So each year, I'd be buying one. So that the first year I'd buy it, and it'd have 9 years before I would get the state pension. So that's that comparison, which is already matching the 380 quid years one. And then the year after it would be 8, and the year after, and it's still 5 years survival there. And then we go to 7. Oh, it's still 5 years worth of survival. How long does it take before it goes to... Yeah, there we go. 4 years of survival. And then 5. And then 4. And then 3. And then 2. And obviously by that point, I'd have a better handle on my health. You know, what's the likelihood of surviving these years? And then obviously it goes to only 3 years of survival. Anyway, so there we go. Just some food for thought, I think. Yeah, if you're quite far away from retirement, it needs a deeper looking into, I think, than just saying 824 divided by 260 is 3 years or whatever it was. It needs deeper thought than that, because you can't. The alternative is invest the money. The alternative is not leave it in a bank, getting exactly the same rate as inflation. Sorry. Anyway, there we go. There's my video for today and spreadsheet. As you can see, I'm using LibreOffice now when I moved to my computer, because I realised that the old version of Excel I was using was so old that it could have been a security risk. So I've gone to LibreOffice because I'm tight-fisted and won't spend money on Excel. Just getting used to it. It's a bit, I don't know, it's all right. It does the job. It's just getting used to it. Like little annoying things like typing in dates. I've had to, because I used to type in dates like this. I'd say the 12th of December 22. Doesn't work. So it doesn't recognise the format and format it as a date. So I've had to adjust things like that. I've managed to go into the settings and make it recognise 12 space December space 12 enter. But that I had to change the settings to make it recognise that. Off topic that was. All right, guys. I will see you later. Bye bye.